Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now, a weekly forecast program with astrology and other ways to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and I invite you to find out more about my work at insightoasis.com. I look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends, and here we go. Okay, so this is the week of December 9th, and what we're going to be hearing as I talk about the last few weeks of 2024 is the threshold of going into 2025 and all the big shifts that will continue to happen as we get there. I consider this a big motion of Neptune moving direct, which happened this weekend, because Neptune is doing its last pass in the sign of Pisces before it hits the sign of Aries, which will happen 2025, March 31st. Yes, it will dip back into Pisces, but I believe that point, spring of 2025, Neptune starts to sextile with Pluto in Aquarius. We are going to see leaps and bounds of movement, light years. What's interesting as Neptune has gone direct this past weekend, it started to bring in conversations on social media of who warrants sympathy and who does not. The event that happened recently in New York City, which is still a shock, where the CEO of United Healthcare was gunned down in a midtown street, especially in the morning. This doesn't happen. I know there's a stream of information about how dangerous cities like New York City are, but this doesn't happen. And so the fact that this event was so targeted, literally, in its last pass out of Pisces, and so Neptune, the symbolism, one of the things it has to do with is caring and love and service. And yes, it is the planet that is associated with healthcare, not insurance companies necessarily, but healthcare. So the fact that this man is being made a folk hero on social media and many people are resisting giving any information if they even have it is very interesting from a moral perspective, because yes, the man was killed. He has children, a family, and this absolutely should not happen. On the other hand, the perspective is that anyone who's been in the healthcare system who has been wildly frustrated with not receiving the care that they need quickly wonders why some lives are considered more valuable than others. And lives for profit is pretty much the theme as we're moving into 2025. And the other piece of this, especially once Neptune enters Aries, which it's not there yet, but we have this warrior, quote, who has committed an act out of what seems to be a grievance with the healthcare industry. This is a fascinating, from an astrological perspective, incident that has been brought in as we go through this shift. Because as Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces, many of us, especially those who have Pisces prominent in their horoscope. Perhaps Neptune is their ruling planet, meaning they have Pisces rising, or Neptune is prominent in their horoscope. As Neptune has been in the sign in Pisces, which is considered one of the signs linked to Neptune, it has really intensified the feelings of victimization, feeling disenfranchised, the polarity that we see that I've spoken many times about in what is revealed with certainly U.S. citizens, but also people in other countries throughout the world, where there's this sense of not being understood, a cloudiness with being able to get real information, the whole seduction of social media and what the subliminal messages are, the conspiracy theories that are all over the place, regardless of what camp you happen to be in, as far as politics or education or legal system, you name it. There is so much cloudiness is one of the words. Confusion is another one. A sense of not being told the truth. And so many of these things, to me, have seemed linked to Neptune being in the sign of Pisces. So am I doing a hallelujah as it's starting to make this pass that will eventually take it into Aries? Well, we'll see. I mean, we'll be in another arc of what happens when and how it happens, because Neptune sextile Pluto is going to be an interesting passage as well. But where we are as this week opens is Mercury and Mars are retrograde. And people who have Gemini strong in their horoscope, Virgo strong in their horoscope, strong aspects to their planet Mercury in their natal horoscope, they usually don't like Mercury retrograde, unless, of course, Mercury is retrograde in your horoscope. And so what's happening is communications tend to get snarled. You can't assume anything. It's really important to back up your files. Get your books and files in order. If you didn't do it before the retrograde, this is a great time to do it. But don't be quick on how you're throwing things out. I got a frantic note from a gal I do some volunteer work with, and who has this huge Excel file with what she's putting together. And she sent me a note saying, "Oh my gosh, I almost lost this. I realized somebody has to have a copy of this." And I thought, okay, sure. So I now have a copy of it, and I put it on my backup hard drive. Does that keep it safe forever? Well, who knows? I mean, it's the electronic world in which we live. We are shoring up a lot of information and putting a lot of faith in digital storage. And whether that will someday come to haunt us, I have no idea. But certainly when Mercury is retrograde, it's a fabulous reminder to make sure you do back it up. If you want to put it in somebody else's home, or reach out to somebody who you would like to also save a file or something, well, I think that's a good proactive move. Mars retrograde is challenging for people who have a lot of Scorpio in their horoscope, Aries, and or a strongly aspected Mars sign. Again, if you were born with Mars retrograde, this may feel like a nice cruise for you, but if you weren't, it can feel as though you're getting stopped in your tracks a bit, or held up, or not able to move forward as gracefully or quickly as you would like. Cars can get a little car-fluey, especially with the Mercury and Mars retrograde. I wouldn't say at all buy a car now unless you absolutely have to. It might be a time when you want to address something that's been causing trouble, like find out the origin of it. And if you can put off having it actually fixed, repaired until it goes direct, that might be a good idea. Sometimes what happens is we have no choice. I mean, things sometimes happen and we just have to buy the product or have it fixed or deal with the issue that comes up because we have to keep being productive and do what we need to do. So just be aware that you want to ask more questions, spring for the more verifiable thing. If you can, again, you might be on the road and it's sort of like, well, whatever is open. And then ideally you move from a point of being totally conscious and aware of what you're doing. Panicking or desperation is never an ideal to operate or make decisions. And so the thing that I'm looking at, especially as the week opens, I'm seeing, okay, this week is opening with pretty good energy considering everything else that's going on. We're still in the waxing moon cycle. We're building energetically whatever it is we are trying to launch, get off the ground, finish, complete. And as long as we keep those retrogrades in mind and are doing our due diligence and moving, mincingly forward, or as with as much intentionality as we possibly can, it can be a productive week. Now, the moon goes void, of course, at 3:45 a.m. in the wee hours of Monday morning, and actually 3:45 a.m. Eastern time. So depending on where you live, it may be in the day, but Eastern time zone, a lot of people are probably resting or asleep unless they're working at night. And when the moon is void, of course, if you haven't heard this already, it's better to complete projects already in motion or work on projects already in motion, not necessarily complete them. Clean things up, purge, organize, or rest and recharge. Because what's happening when the moon is void, of course, is we aren't feeling as emotionally invested in the outcome. And most things that really happen, anything certainly that has to do with a product, service, launching, things that are an extra stretch than just, oh, this is something I'm doing in a rote sort of way. They work better when we have an emotional investment to the outcome. So that's why moon void, of course, it's better to be not really trying to contact that person you've been trying to get in touch with forever to sell them on an idea or make those connections you need to make. It's better to wait until the moon is moving through a sign in an auspicious configuration. And that happens when the moon enters Aries at 8:38 a.m. on Monday. And this is a good day. It looks very productive to me. It looks like we can feel as though we got some traction, things are happening. Some people can feel very inspired, very on, very empowered. And all that is really good for fresh start, reevaluation, looking forward. It's a terrific way to be moving in directions that are where you want to head and what you want to make happen. Once again, keep in mind Mercury is retrograde and Mars is retrograde. So I would avoid overscheduling or having a lot of tight connections, and double check your calendar, what you said you would do. It's really easy for something to fall through the cracks, especially when the moon is in a fire sign and we're having the sense that, a lot of things are burning off and getting clear now that Neptune is direct. It's still in the sign of Pisces, so that clarity may be a little less crisp than we think, but it may be feeling a lot better with being able to see and discern. And as we do that, as Neptune continues direct through this last cycle through Pisces, a lot is going to be revealed over the next couple of months. We will be seeing things in a different light than we have seen them before. And that weariness or feeling held back or a bit of paralysis that may have happened to some of us is going to continue to burn off. And the sense, because I'm not trying to say Neptune in Pisces has been terrible, certainly not, but the obfuscation of so many things is going to gain greater clarity as people, because in my mind, the point of it has been for us to work on connecting more to our innate spirituality and how we are linked in this big universal unconsciousness. And yet this period has been increasingly manipulated by people with agendas who have been, and I'm sorry if this sounds like a conspiracy theory as I'm saying this, but nonetheless, I mean, we know that anytime a product is marketed or a message is put out as an advertisement, even a public service message, people have, it's behind it is an agenda. Someone is pushing out an idea. Even me doing this podcast, I am pushing out. I have an agenda. There's a reason I do this, especially the ones that this is free. Most of you who listen are not subscribing. And my agenda, my purpose in doing this is I truly believe, and it's more than just my belief, because I know this from an astrological perspective, and that's the snare, especially with Neptune and Pisces, where when we operate on just what we believe, then we're basically not always checking in with what's in front of us. And there's a lot to be said for operating on belief and faith. Absolutely. It can get us through really difficult situations where everything seems to be pointing downward. On the other hand, it's important to lift up. And so my agenda here is I work on lifting us up, including me, when I'm looking at the astrological symbolism, and I'm working on cracking through what it is I missed, didn't understand, and want to aim for. Because there's so much that is pointing towards a dystopian future if we're looking at the realities of climate change and the plutocracy that more and more is getting in place, and how the value of human life and of natural life is less and less appreciated. And I could definitely go down a road saying, wow, it's all really bad. But I prefer to have in what I'm looking at as symbolic messages that lifts you up as you listen to it, and lifts me up as I see affirmation in what I'm looking at in the language of astrology. So let me continue with the week, because I've been kind of drifting off a lot here, but Neptune is direct, so it being a planet that has a big effect on my personal horoscope when it moves, this is what I'm doing. I'm getting these kind of psychic hits right now, and here I go. So the moon goes void of course on Tuesday the 10th, and the time is 5:13 p.m. And so Monday and Tuesday until the early evening, these are fabulous days for clicking in and making those connections and really feeling vitality. Do things that give you that lift, not just 5 cups of coffee, but whatever walking or breathing or exercise or dance just gives you that sense of, whew, I'm really feeling very much alive. And it will keep giving you that fuel to keep moving. Now, that void, of course, is through the evening, so it's just a great time to burn off any energy, do things that you've already been working on, and don't do anything Herculean that you don't usually do, but do things that just continue to help you feel alive, invigorated, and in motion. Now, the moon goes into the sign of Taurus at 10:55 a.m. the next morning on the 11th, Wednesday. And so the morning, again, before it hits that point in time, really nice to just be moving forward with whatever you had planned. But if you can avoid having those business meetings or connections that are really super important until the moon enters Taurus, all the better. Because once it enters Taurus, it goes through some rocky points. I have to be honest with you. There may be a little power struggle in the late morning, including with who you look at the mirror, this sense of, I don't want to do this, or is this really happening the way I need it to, or why is that person always getting in my way? So whatever it is that helps you push through and make those things happen, well, just keep pushing it, go forward. Don't be deterred. It's good to reevaluate and learn from whatever pushed at you, but don't let it derail you, because it's really not going to in the long run, especially when we're looking at what that inherent faith and belief is. Because back to what I was saying earlier, beliefs aren't necessarily bad because they can get us through tough stuff. And so whatever you want to make happen, believe you can make happen, if you hit those bumps in the road over Wednesday, just keep your eye on what the overall goal is, because these impasses or detours, these are things that are basically saying to you, okay, This isn't working out the way you thought it would, but how can you adjust or talk to somebody else? Because this person, you're just banging your head against the wall. And that's a little harder for people who have fixed signs like Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, because these are folks who like to carry on with whatever program they already had in place. But we may have to, take a tangent or move in another direction or knock on another door, especially if we're just not getting anywhere with where we started. The moon just continues on the sign of Taurus the next day, Thursday, and this will be less friction. Thursday looks to me like it's a pretty good day when things can really accelerate and we can have that sense that we are moving forward, meeting more of the people who are on page with us, enjoying a luncheon meeting or dinner, just really like cooking along. And it's really, when we get in the evening, especially late evening, it's a lovely evening to restore, refresh, enjoy things that help you feel very alive, textures, scents, tastes, music, hugs, all the things that just really feel sweet and sink into them. Taurus doesn't like to hurry. Taurus likes to really take its time on whatever it's savoring. And it can be a super enjoyable evening if you allow yourself to do that. Now, December 13th, Friday, the moon's still in the sign of Taurus. It goes void of course at 7:39 a.m. So early risers can enjoy a relatively productive morning, a sense of feeling like, okay, this is all working the way I want it to. The moon does not enter Gemini until 12:22 p.m., so early afternoon. And so that morning can feel like, I really don't want to go out. I don't want to rush. I don't want to hurry. I want to just savor my breakfast, take my time. If you can do that, fabulous, because it's very restorative. It's a good thing to be able to do for yourself. If your schedule does not allow it, acknowledge this is where you're at, and don't get all like crazy that you're just not moving at the velocity you would like to move, or somebody else may not be. Because once that moon enters Gemini, things really start to speed up. And actually, they're speeding up to a velocity that maybe isn't the best, considering Mercury is retrograde and Mars is retrograde. Mercury will go direct on Sunday, but that kind of before it does can feel very hurry up and wait to some of us. So the overall energy of Friday afternoon, evening is really wanting to push ahead, connect. Oh, that's a great idea. Oh, wow, let's do that. And it really behooves us to slow down a little if possible. It does start to get a bit better on Saturday the 14th, especially once we pass late morning. We may be better at catching things that are going to end up coming back to us, because that's what happens with Mercury retrograde. If we're sloppy, if we're proceeding with something that there are signs that tell us slow down, double check, then it's going to boomerang back. And it's really better not to have that happen if possible. What I see is really lovely on Saturday is this is a great afternoon for ideas, bringing in that sense of, oh, this is fun, wouldn't this be great? Jot it down, look at it, reevaluate it once Mercury goes direct, because there may be things that you'll see later that you can really put in position that are going to work a lot better for you. So Sunday the 15th is that full moon in the sign of Gemini. And the moon is, well, let's see, it's exact at 4:02 a.m. Sunday. And then it goes void of course at 9:32 a.m. And the moon enters the sign of Cancer at 2:21 p.m. Mercury goes direct at 3:56 p.m. So there's a lot going on this particular day. And I'll probably do a lunation special on this as well. I'm reevaluating how often I do the full moon and new moon additions. Send me a note if you have a feeling either way. That might help me clarify. And of course, I will get better at decision making once Mercury goes direct. So I wish you all a very good week. Enjoy and make the most of this as you wish. And know that as we're moving in this last pass of, although Neptune will return to Pisces briefly, but basically we are making that shift as we go through this last pass of it before it hits Aries early next year. So look at this. Look at maybe what has you slip into a sense of feeling disenfranchised, victimized, confused, cloudy, and consider that there are also alternatives to that can lift your spirits and bring you in new directions when you welcome it in. You have been listening to Astrology Insight Now. Please share with your friends, and if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at astrologyinsightnow.com. Have a stellar week, and we hope to see you next time.